Hello everyone, and welcome to Merlin's Manor. Today I'm going to be reviewing Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, which is primarily a solo game. They did add a 1v1 mode towards the end of the Kickstarter campaign, but it was created focusing on that solo game, and that's going to be what I'm going to be focusing on in my review today. One thing though that was weird is that even though the versus mode is included with the game, they did not include the instructions for the versus mode. You have to go ahead and download that, as well as if you want the standalone missions instead of the campaign, you'd also have to go ahead and download and print out that as well. Not a big deal, but I thought it was kind of odd for them to include a versus mode that you don't actually have the instructions for in the original game. If you got the Kickstarter version, you would have those instructions, but for the deluxe and the other retail version, you're not going to be able to get that unless you print it off yourself. I do have the deluxe version, so keep that in mind as we're looking at the different components here. It's going to be the deluxe version, not the Kickstarter version and not the basic retail version, but the deluxe. Okay, let's start with looking at the gameplay now. And they include this reference card here for the round sequence. And there's a different one for each book. Has slightly different variations on what's going to happen, but the basic thing that's going to happen is at the beginning of each round, you are going to pick the top 12 cards of the deck here, and you are going to each time look at 3. So you're going to look at 3 cards, just like this, and you're going to pick 2 of those cards to keep into for yourself, and 1 to become the event. And so you get to choose the event and say, like, maybe you don't want this event, and so you'll be like, I definitely need to hold on to this card in order to keep from that happening to me. Or you may want to focus on what you'll be getting that's good. Here are detective cards, which are things that you can use at any point in the game to be able to do different things. And you also have fight cards, which these don't go into your hand immediately. They go into a fight deck, which will get shuffled up. And then every time you fight somebody, before you fight, you'll be able to draw this into your hand. You can use that for that fight, or you can hold on to it for later and use it for that. And so you'll put detective cards straight into your hands. Fight cards will go into a deck that you'll be able to get when you fight. And then you'll choose 2. One of them will become an event, and that's going to be something that's going to be harmful, but some of them are more harmful than others. You may decide you want to keep one just because you don't want it to become an event that's going to hurt you a lot. Or you might want to keep things that are really powerful and be like, I'll be okay with that more powerful event and let that happen to me. Anyway, so that's what's going to happen first. You're going to do that 4 times for all 12 cards to come through there. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to shuffle the decks up, and then you are going to write adversary numbers. You're going to be given at the beginning of the book. It's going to tell you what to write in there. For the very first one, you're going to write a 7 right here. And that means 7 different things are going to come in each time that you hit for each round. And you're going to choose then where you want them to come in at. And so you might say, I want for this first round, I want 3 things to come in there. Second round, I want 2. Third round, I want 2. And then the last round, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0. Okay, and so you'll say that's what's going to happen. And they let you know that it's going to be mutants. This round is going to be press here, it's going to be cops, and then mutants. And each one tells you what's going to happen. They're in a little bit different order each round. You're also going to have flipped up where they are going to enter in at. Upper west, downtown south, downtown, and upper would be these ones here. I know you can't really see that, but you'll get to know beforehand as you're picking all those generally where that's going to happen ahead of time. And so after you've picked all of that, you're going to then flip over the top event card. You're going to resolve that event. And then you are going to move Batman to a location. If there's an enemy token there, then you must land on an enemy token. Or you can choose to sneak in a moment if you don't want to have to fight. But before you do that, you're going to activate an ally, which means you can move one of your allies and use one of their abilities. And you're going to start out with Commissioner Gordon, and then you're going to get other allies as you go throughout the game. And they each have a different thing that they're able to do. Some help you with fighting, some help with removing different things. And so you're going to be able to use those. And then you go ahead and you either fight or you sneak. Fighting, you're going to be rolling some of these dice for the bad guys. I got the mutant ones there for the most part. And some cop dice. You're going to be rolling those. And you're going to be rolling some of your dice 3 at a time and resolving those. You've got different things that are going to take out the bad guys, different things that are going to block the bad guys, and they're going to attack you as well. And you're going to kind of resolve fights that way. And then after you do that, You are then able to use the action space that you wind up on. If you manage to win that fight, you'll be on the action space and you'll be able to take that action. And some will remove police officers, some will remove mutants, some will remove press, some will give you a bit of your health back or your grit or your sanity. Some of them will move this doomsday clock backwards and different things like that. And so then after you resolved all that, you're going to add adversaries based on what you had for the round there. And then you're going to advance the turn tracker, which is this thing right here. And then at the end of a round, which is after you've done that 4 times, you are then going to place any riots where there are a full 3 different adversaries on a section. You are going to then draw a new path somewhere on there that will help you out. And then you will advance the Doomsday Clock 1. And so you'll do all of that, and then you'll start a new round. You'll do that trying to find clues as you go along, trying to take out some of the bad guys there, trying to even get rid of some of the press and the police officers, because they're going to kind of get in the way a little bit. And so you're going to be doing all these different things to try and keep the board from getting to the point where there's going to be riots, and to try to find all the clues, find the bad guy, fight the final bad guy, and that's basically how a book goes. I mean, there's 4 books in the campaign, and you're going to be trying to work your way through that. Each time you end a book, you're going to keep everything the way it is on the board, and so you're going to have basically the same board state, same health state. The Doomsday Clock's going to be in the same place, and so you're going to have all that, so you want to kind of clean that up as much as you can as you're going along, so that you don't wind up with a whole bunch of mess by the time you get to the last book. And that's the basic gameplay right there. Let's go into talking about the actual review itself here. Okay, first of all, in the review, let's go ahead and talk about the components. Now, the components I like for the most part. I like the look of the board. I also like that they have different reference cards to help you out throughout the game, so you don't have to reference the rulebook a lot. The rulebook itself is pretty big and unwieldy, and so it's nice that you don't always have to be going right back to that. The board also tells you where they're going to go at different places. We got letter J for Joker. You've got TF for Two-Face. And so you got different places where they're going to start already labeled there, which is nice as well. You've got different things on the board that show you where all your starting health is going to go, as circled here. And so that's a good reminder. You're good where the Doomsday thing is going to start. All that's really nice that you've got that to where once you've kind of understood and read it, you don't have to keep going back to the instruction book for that either, because you can just be like, okay, that's where the circle is, that's where we're going to start. And so I really enjoyed the fact that that's easy for setup. I've got lots of miniatures. Again, I've got the deluxe version here. If you have the standard version, it's not going to have the miniatures. You also have standees for everybody. If you'd rather use standees, you can do that. There are a few miniatures that don't come with the deluxe version that were in the Kickstarter. One of those is this person right here, Commissioner Yindel. And then you've also, well, this one doesn't come with a miniature anyway, but that's Selena. But she isn't really necessary. She just kind of sits there and doesn't do anything, so I don't really know that we even needed a standee for that. You don't have the miniature for the Batwing, but beyond that, you have all the vehicles and all the different bad guys and good guys that you're going to be needing. And so you can choose to use, if you'd rather, you can use the standees or you can use the miniatures. I prefer using the miniatures myself. The miniatures are all good quality, other than the fact that one of the helicopter actually just got knocked off right before I started this video, and just from falling and hitting the ground, the thing that holds it up snapped. And so that was kind of cheapy on that part right there, that just a small fall and it snaps right off. But other than that, all the components are good. We got lots of different dice. The batarangs are really cool here. Let me show you some of these. And so, and they roll really good. I was kind of concerned that they wouldn't roll well, but they do roll nice. You also have different dice for each of the adversaries. These are for the mutant leader. These are Joker's dice. And they're all 8-sided dice for the different bad guys. Well, this is Superman. He's not really a bad guy, but he is going up against you there. And then Two-Face has his dice. And so there we go. You also have dice for the police, dice for the mutants. Everybody has their own kind of dice there. I accidentally grabbed a police dice in there, but you get the idea. And so they're all different colors, easy to find. You have dice for your allies. And then you just got all kinds of different dice. And so they're really all kind of cool. I really enjoyed that you have all these different dice that do different things. Each has their own kind of thing. Some of them block, some of them do POW attacks, some do ram attacks which hurt you. Some have a little bit of variation. You've got POWs and rams and blocks on them. And so some allow you to flip a dice. You're also going to have different things that are going to help you do that as well. And so lots of cool kind of stuff with the dice. You've got a bunch of different cardboard for your mutants and your press. All different color-coded cops. And you're going to be putting those out on the board. They got that shape that fits right onto each spot on the board. The standees also, the ones that are, or the miniatures should I say, have the same shape right here. They're going to go right onto the board like that. Kind of nice design there. You've got more cardboard just for your, these are tokens that are going to go on different cards that you get. The cards themselves shuffle well and they are decent quality. And so I don't have any issues with those. I really like all the components. Now the gameplay I found to be pretty good. When I first started out though, it wasn't very easy of access here. When I first started reading the rule book and trying to figure everything out, it took me almost 2 hours to get things set up and read through the rule book and get started. One of the things that led to some confusion was that they don't have the pictures of the components next to the listing of the components. And so then when you're told to put these dice here, you know, what kind of dice is that? You didn't really kind of explain that. And you didn't really have a picture of that next to that. You know, and so it'd be nice if the components were listed next to pictures of what the components actually were. It took me a little bit on some of the things to figure out what they were. But once I figured them out, everything else went pretty smooth. And like I said, when talking about the components, having these different reference cards helps you to be able to get into the game and keep playing it without having to go back and forth to the rule book. And so I like that as well. And the gameplay, very interesting. You are trying to find these different clues. You're trying to get everything done in a certain amount of time. First, when you first start playing the game, all the different mutants and other adversaries around the board kind of get you feeling like there's a lot to go on, and you're a little overwhelmed when you first start out. But you kind of quickly get in the handle of it and figuring out how to limit the problems that are going on the board. It's a good puzzle to try and figure all that out while still trying to progress the game along and try and make sure things are cleaned up enough for the next round. You're going to be getting different good things to help you out for future rounds. You've got different, of course, dice that you can bring in. You got different goals each round that you're going to try to complete. And if you complete those goals that round, you're going to have an ongoing bonus for the rest of the game. And if you don't complete it, you can try to complete it next round. And so that's good that you are going to have all these different things that are going to help you to be able to win the game. Now, the game itself I found to be really easy once I figured it all out and got going. I didn't really ever feel like I was getting close to losing. There's 3 different ways that you can lose the game. You can lose the game if the Doomsday Tracker gets all the way up to 12, and you're going to be raising that every round. And you're also going to have different cards that are going to raise that sometimes, but there's also places on the board you can lower it. There's cards, I believe, that come out that you can lower it, and so you can kind of handle that. And I never really got that close to losing that way. I got to about 7, I think, my second playthrough, where I was really not worried about it as much because I remembered from the first playthrough that it was going to be okay. And so I wanted to do other things than focus on that. And even without really focusing on it, I never got even close to losing it that way. Another way you can lose is if there's 12 riots out on the board. I never got above, I think, 6 riots, and that was when I let things get really out of control in the first game. And still wasn't even close to getting to the 12 riots. I might not even had 6 out. But in the last second playthrough, I don't think I had more than 2 or 3 at any given time. And so very easy to win that way. Another thing, you don't want to run out of time in a book by having 16 turns. If you get 16 turns, you lose. And so you don't want to do that. And you need to defeat the different people. And so it's very easy to do all of this once you kind of get rolling, get doing that. My second playthrough, I actually got a perfect score and never felt like I was in danger of losing. Oh, and then the other way, fourth way you can lose actually is that if your health gets down to 0 on any of the things, whether it's your actual health, your grit, or your sanity. And so I never even, I think one time I got down to 3 on my health, and that was because I was really trying to be as efficient as possible and not worried about my health, and I still managed to get it all right back up. And so it was no issue there. And so I wish it was a little bit harder. That kind of hits into the replayability. I don't think this game has a lot of replayability for 2 reasons. One, it's so easy once you learn the ropes. There are different ways that people have found to tighten it up and make it a little bit more difficult. There are a few official ways that have been listed to make it a little bit more difficult. But even with those, I don't see it going to be a game that's going to be super hard. It doesn't necessarily have to be hard, but when you're talking about you only have 4 books to get through anyway, and the campaign is over, that's the other part of the lack of replayability there, is that the game is just over in 4 games, and you can play it again, but then you're only doing 4 games each time, and it's going to become samey by the time. And you do have some different variability as far as you're going to be shuffling the different places that the different mutants and press and cops are going to come out. So they're going to come out in different places each round. You've got a few other different variabilities, especially as cards go. But in the end, you've got the same goals each round. You've got the same people you're facing against. And it's going to become samey fairly quickly, even with the little bit of variability you've got going on in different ways. And so I think replayability takes a big hit, unless I can find some ways to make it more difficult and more content comes out. Maybe expansions, maybe fan-made content. That might give it a little bit more longevity. But as it stands, as the game itself, it takes a huge hit on replayability, and that's going to affect my score quite a bit, actually. Usually replayability hasn't affected my score greatly in any games, but for this one it does. I'll get to that as we're going to get into the final thoughts in a minute. Overall, though, I do enjoy the gameplay. I just wish it was a little bit more difficult and had a little bit more to it. Okay, so let's get into the final thoughts for this game. Overall, I rate this game a 7 out of 10. I would have rated it maybe a 9 out of 10 had it not been for how easy it was, mixed with the lack of overall content to the point of I feel the replayability takes a big hit. And so between those two things, it really marked it down about 2 full points that way. Because it was enjoyable to play it for the first 2 playthroughs. I might get another playthrough or 2 out of it. And then after that, I think I'm going to be probably done with this game unless I really enjoy the versus aspect of it, which I'm going to look into a bit more. But even then, I've looked at it, I've glanced at the verses, and there really just isn't a whole lot to it. You're basically still doing the same thing. It's just that you've got somebody you're going against that's going to control the enemies in a kind of a different way. And so there's a little bit of uniqueness there, but even then, it's going to kind of fall back into that kind of sameness after a while, I think, from just a glance at that. But I do enjoy the game. I do recommend getting it and playing it. But it's not, just keep in mind, it's not going to be one that you're probably going to keep around and play over and over and over again. And maybe you bring it out every now and then to give it another playthrough after you get some time to cool. But I do really enjoy it, and I do recommend it. But at the same time, keep in mind that replayability factor and how easy it's going to become fairly quickly, unless you can try and tweak it to make it more difficult. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.